All righty, here we go. It is a brand new Flyers Daily for the 2nd of July, 2025. Flyers Daily, as always, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. If you're watching on the YouTube feed, you may see my dog walking around in the background. At some point, she has followed me around like a lost puppy because my wife is at the beach, and she usually follows her around. And with my wife not here, she's following me around. So you may see the dog in the background. That's my Luna. A white English cream golden retriever. Anyway, a lot to get to in this episode. Obviously, free agent day is underway. Flyers development camp is underway. I'll be there this morning taping a bunch of interviews with Flyers draft picks and prospects, including Porter Martone. So look forward to that coming up in some subsequent episodes as we trudge on through the summer. And free agent frenzy happened yesterday. A lot of players opting to sign with their existing teams. It was kind of a lackluster free agent day. But where I want to start with this episode, we're going to get to Danny Briere's press conference that he had yesterday, his media availability, kind of at the end of the day, talking about the players the Flyers signed, talking about Tyson Foerster's injury, Shabanov, and more. So we'll get to that. But where I want to start this episode is actually with the retirement announcement, full retirement announcement of Bob McKenzie. Now, Bob McKenzie has worked nearly 50 years in hockey, and a lot of those years at TSN started there, I think, in the mid-'80s, and he is now going to be fully retired. Bob set the standard for hockey reporting. Just great reporting delivered in a very educated, rational way. And the reason why I want to start there is, first, I want to congratulate Bob on a great career, and to say this, and I put this out in a tweet as well. It's a good lesson for people that want to get into the media or become content creators, whatever it is. Bob McKenzie's a great case study because Bob was always authentic. Bob was never chasing clicks, chasing newspaper subscriptions or views on television or social media or anything like that. Bob did everything in a very authentic way, which is educated, which was rational, which was based in a foundation of truth and honesty. And it's something that I try and do as well. I am not a fan of hot take artists. I think it's disingenuous. So the reason why I bring it up to start this episode was to thank Bob for his great reporting and great craft over the years, but also to attack this episode and the information that we gleaned yesterday from free agency in a thoughtful, rational, not hot take mentality. Bob kind of set a standard for that. And I think authenticity, and it will always, always work if you're authentic and you educate yourself on the things you know and the things you don't know. Learn them deeper and learn the things you don't know. I think that's always very important. So we start there. We'll start real quick with Tyson Foerster's injury because it came out yesterday that he is dealing with, I guess it's an infection. Danny Briere will speak to it as well. He suffered an injury at the World Hockey Championship where he was playing for Team Canada and developed an infection in his elbow area, I guess. And they're still having him see doctors to see exactly if he's going to have more procedures or surgery or whatever done, and how much time he can miss. There could be a chance that he could miss significant time. There's a chance that, as Danny Briere will say, that he may miss no time. So we'll see where that goes. I am crushed and gutted for the player and for the fan base because I think he is so poised to have a bust out coming off that experience at the World Hockey Championship, a new contract. I wanted to see Tyson Foerster get off and running to a great next step in his career. We'll see if that is interrupted by the injury. Now on to free agency. Flyers made 3 basically NHL impactful signings, and to varying degrees. Yesterday, they ended up signing a 29-year-old Christian Dvorak. He signed a 1-year contract with the Flyers for $5.4 million. He can play center. He can play wing. He kind of fills that role of Ryan Poehling, a really good face-off guy, can kill penalties, play all situations, played under Rick Tocchet before, kind of takes that role of Scott Laughton, Ryan Poehling. I know the sticker shock of $5.4 million. We'll get to that in a second. They also signed goaltender 27-year-old Dan Vladar, who spent last year with Calgary to a 2-year $3.3 million average annual value contract. We'll talk about Vladar and that contract in a second as well. And they also signed a right shot defenseman, Knowles Juleson, who's 28 years old, to a 1-year, one-way $900,000 contract. Depth defenseman. And if Rasmus Ristolainen can't start the year, he's a guy that you can go to, but he's a guy that also can be sent down, but won't have the reduction in salary. So let's start with, I think it was the first signing of the day around the NHL. Christian Dvorak signs that 1-year contract for $5.4 million. And a lot of people sticker shock right away, seeing that $5.4 million. So why $5.4 million? I had the sticker shock as well. And we have to realize that in a rising cap world, $5 million, 5.4 in this case, this year doesn't mean what it meant 2 years ago because of percentage of cap. That being said, it still seems like a high ticket for what is a fourth line center or a guy in his role. And you have to pay a premium if you want to get a guy on a 1-year deal. You have to give more money. I would rather pay Christian Dvorak 1 times 5.4 than I would 3 times 3.5 because of the situation and where the Flyers are. Now, Christian Dvorak, he'll help them immediately. He'll fill that void of a Scott Laughton, Ryan Poehling, because he's on a 1-year deal. If the Flyers are not and sniffing the playoffs at the trade deadline, you can trade him. He doesn't have any protection. You can move him and you likely get a 2nd-round pick. Who knows? Maybe he has a great year and get a 1st-round pick. What I know is general managers are always at the deadline looking for a center that can do those kind of things. Kill penalties, take key faceoffs, a guy that can play center and wing. If he has a good year, he'll create more value in that situation. To me, the 1 year is the key because it doesn't block Lutsenko now because you can move several guys to wing. Noah Cates you can move to wing. Lutsenko could play wing. Christian Dvorak can play wing, so it doesn't block him. If Lutsenko earns it in camp, then he still makes the team. And Christian Dvorak doesn't block him. But the 5.4, I get the sticker shock. I understand. And it seems like a lot. But in this situation, for the 1-year contract for a 29-year-old player, where term is so important to players, this is a deal that makes them better, significantly better? No. But it helps them move forward a little bit. All the subtractions in the last couple of years prior to this summer have been subtractions without an equal or greater to player replacing that subtraction. Now they're starting to add players, whether it's Zegras or whatever they end up adding going forward, to make the team better, incrementally better. As I said, this summer and this free agency period was not going to be a Godfather situation of the baptism where they settle all family business in one day or in one off season. They have to get incrementally better. And you also want to get incrementally better to help the development of young players, to start winning more and not have the stain of losing, and also to make your team more attractive going forward as a team that is now on the rise. We'll see if they rise, how far they rise. Part of that is why you sign Christian Dvorak to a 1-year deal. Part of that is why you make the trade for Trevor Zegras with only 1 year left on his deal to see where you go from there. Danny Briere will talk about in his press conference the importance of limited term. Dvorak's a great example of that. Dan Vladar is another good example of that. Dan Vladar, Danny said in his press conference, they ultimately wanted to find a goalie on a 1-year deal. Very difficult to do. Now, Vladar signs a 2-year, $3.35 million contract. He's only played 30 games once in his NHL career, so it'll be a bit of a 1A, 1B tandem with Ersson. Is it an upgrade over Ivan Fedotov and Kolosov? I believe so. To a pretty large degree as well. Even though Vladar doesn't have gaudy NHL numbers, I think it's a big upgrade. Vladar is right in that spot in his career where he could blossom. He also needs to be in a better defensive zone environment. Now, the Flyers didn't provide that last year. That wasn't a good D-zone environment. They gave up a ton of east-west plays, a ton of net front tips and rebounds. Under Rick Tocchet, and as I was picking up my phone after they signed Vladar to text our good buddy at In Goal Magazine, Kevin Woodley, he texted me, and he and I were going back and forth on Vladar. And Vladar is a guy that doesn't have over 900 save percentage. When you look at Rick Tocchet teams, generally his teams have a positive defensive zone environment for goaltending to be good. You look at what he had in Vancouver. They get the contract done for Lankinen. They had Thatcher Demko, earlier stops in his career. Goaltending has always been kind of a strength of Rick Tocchet's teams, even though they haven't had ultimate success. Why is that? Well, in today's NHL, the East-West play is one of the highest danger scoring chances. When a puck crosses the middle of the ice, one-time shot, that's where a goalie's got to move side to side, opens up. They're the most difficult saves other than tips and rebounds. With Rick Tocchet's box-in-one defensive system, it clogs the middle of the ice. So it really limits those East-West plays from getting through. And it also really does a good job of keeping stuff to the outside, which helps goaltenders. So it's a good environment for a goaltender. We always talk about goaltending doesn't happen in a vacuum. They also are a product of their environment and the quality of chances against. So we'll see how Vladar does in this situation. But when you look at the 2-year, $3.35 million deal, I looked at some other options out there. Obviously, Jake Allen signs this crazy contract at 35 years of age, 5 years extension. That's a non-starter. Also, you look at some of the other free agents. It was a really thin free agent class. And because the goalie free agent class is so thin, that affects the goalie trade market. Because the teams that have goalies that are available for trade know that the slim pickings is there in the free agent market, so they can ask for a higher price in the trade market. So could the Flyers have traded for Pyotr Kochetkov from the Hurricanes? Yeah, but the cost for the acquisition would have been substantial. Now, would you have been better off with Kochetkov than Vladar? I would have felt more comfortable, but I have to factor in the cost per acquisition for Kochetkov. And there is no cost per acquisition with Dan Vladar. It's a free agent signing. And it's a 2-year contract, which also coincides with Zavragin's contract in the Continental Hockey League. And that's the guy the Flyers are looking to be one of the next guys, along with Carson Bjarnason. We'll see how the next 2 years goes in the development for both Igor Zavragin and Carson Bjarnason. But you sign Vladar, and it doesn't block either of those guys. So that's a big reason why that ends up where it is. Could they have done better and gotten a better tandem option along with Sam Ersson? Yes. But again, the cost for acquisition is a big part of this. And when you're acquiring something with a significant cost, you do so with the intent of keeping it longer. But because they have Zavragin and Bjarnason, that goes into the calculus in this deal as well. We'll see about Vladar. I've seen a decent amount of him. From what I understand, the technical elements of his game are very good. They are there. He's got a good foundation. Could they use some work? Yes. A big goalie always can use some work in keeping things tight and efficiency and movement. Great size at 6'5", 27 years of age. So we'll see what the Flyers can do here. And also what the effect can be on Sam Ersson. Ersson's best full season was when Carter Hart was here, and he had to fight for that playing time. We'll be in that same situation here. So this could be a good tandem situation, but we have a lot to be seen first before I'm just going to hand that mantle. It's going to have to be earned for both Ersson and for Dan Vladar. As far as Juleson goes, this is a depth signing. If Rasmus Ristolainen can't start the year, he's a 6th, 7th defenseman. Again, it can be sent back down if you want to bring up Helgi Grans or somebody else from the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. So those are kind of the 3 big signings. Flyers also signed 29-year-old defenseman Dennis Gilbert and a center, Lane Peterson, basically AHL depth there for them in free agency. I wasn't expecting a big day in free agency. Didn't get one. I know a lot of times you can see some of the things that are happening around the league and some teams getting some big-time pieces to really help them. Flyers were not in that position yet, I didn't think, going into this free agency. So I'm not shocked by what we saw. But again, the sticker shock to 5.4 for Dvorak and 2 years to 3.35 for Vladar. I can understand why people reacted to that. I really can. So that's the situation with free agency. Flyers also extended a qualifying offer to Cam York. They got to get that deal done still. We'll see how that plays out. And we'll still see about Shabanov. Danny Briere, about the 13-minute and 40-second point of this media availability, was asked by Charlie O'Connor of PHLY about Shabanov. And if Shabanov ends up signing here, I want to play poker with Danny Briere because he's got a bad poker face. He had that same smile and look on his face as he did when he was asked about Matvei Mishkov coming over early a couple of years ago. And seemingly he knew he was coming over but couldn't say it yet. So whether he knows something and that look was a bad poker face, we shall see. But that's the business that got done yesterday. We'll see if there's trades in the offing, see if the Flyers get into that market now. What happens with teams that didn't land a piece that they want. Now the trade market starts to get a little interesting. If they missed out on a guy, they'll try and trade for their help. We'll see how the Flyers fit into that equation as well. I think certainly they'll be listening on a lot of things. And if Shabanov comes, there is a numbers game there too, with right wing and who can move to the left. How many guys can you have? Do you need to look at moving a right winger, whether that's Brink or somebody? We'll see. But that's the state of play after day one of NHL free agency. So let's get to the general manager. He had a chance to discuss all and more with the media yesterday. And here's Danny Briere's availability yesterday on day one of NHL free agency.
Projections. Does that just speak to how much you guys needed to fill certain holes coupled with what's basically a weak market?
Well, I think it also shows that we focused on short term, to try to fill those holes. Guys were willing to bet on themselves, which is awesome. And for us, term was way more important than anything else. But sometimes you got to give in somewhere to entice those types of players to come in. So we know that the salaries were very competitive, but where it helps us is it keeps the flexibility moving forward in our favor.
How do you see Dvorak fitting into the lineup?
I'm excited about him. And then, I think one of the enticing part too for him is the opportunities that he's going to have. It's no secret that we're pretty thin in the middle. Couturier and Cates really are the only two for sure. I mean, we hope that Zegras can play center as well, but there's opportunities there for him, probably more than he would have seen somewhere else, and I feel that was probably very enticing for him. So to get a big body like that that can play a 200-foot game, win faceoffs for us, I think he makes us a better team having him down the middle.
With Vladar, what was it about him that maybe made you guys look to target him specifically to add to the goalie position?
Well, first of all, he wanted to come to Philly. And then, we had discussions with a few other agents on different guys, and at first the ask was 3, 4, 5 years on the goalie. So it was already a pretty thin market going in. Dan Vladar told us very early on that he saw an opportunity. He wanted to come in and compete in Philadelphia. So we jumped on it. For us, again, the most important, ideally, we're looking for a 1-year deal. But we realized that to get some help, we needed to step it up a little bit. But when he told us that he wanted to come, we jumped on it. Our goalie coaches were excited about the package. there's no perfect goalie that was available out there, but we feel he gives us a chance to come in, compete with our group, and push the envelope. He has a chance to become our number one, depending on how how he plays, how our other guys play. And one thing at the end of the year, when I met with our group of goalies, I told them you have to be ready at training camp. I said, we're probably going to go out. This wasn't good enough last season. We're probably going to go out and bring some reinforcements, and you're going to be in a battle, all of you guys. So it was really clear right from the get-go. And we hope that, Vladar comes in and brings a little bit or a lot of competition to the group, and they have to fight for it.
So are you looking at this as, obviously the three, and I guess you could open up to four if you want to include Kolosov, but the three big ones are Sam Ersson, who you've said you guys believe in. You have now Vladar, and then you have Fedotov. Do you envision this as an open competition, or is this looking right now like it's going to be probably Ersson, Vladar?
Yeah, it looks that way, obviously. The way they've played the last couple of years, it's probably Ersson, Vladar. But you always, how many teams go with only two goalies? Not too many of them. You need 3-4 goalies. So my message to them is it doesn't matter where you slot in right now. Come in, be ready, and when it's your turn, you got to perform. I hope we could create that environment that every single night they're battling for their spot. We're going to need at least 3 goalies, maybe more. We know that, and I think Vladar helps us, put us in a better position.
Vladar's never played more than 30 games in a season thus far in his career. Do you believe he can do more than that?
I do believe that. I mean, and ideally it would be having a good tandem. Whoever that is. I mean, you look at Fedotov and Kolosov, they never had the chance to play in the NHL, play very many games themselves. And I think Sam, maybe 1 year, but we, Sam is also a goalie that needs to be fresh. He's at his best when he's fresh. Worked really well that 1 year when he was a tandem with Carter Hart. That was probably his best year. So if we can get him that again, that would be great.
Did you look at the trade route at all for goaltending?
We did.
And did you think there was any options there?
Because the market was so thin, teams were aware of that. And the prices were way more than we were willing to pay. So value-wise, it made more sense to go with the free agency route.
Can you maybe talk a little bit about the defensemen, Juleson and Gilbert, and maybe the thought process behind their signings?
Yeah, we wanted to, 1 year deal, bigger guys. We've talked in the past about how, a little small on defense. We wanted to bring a little bit of size, especially with Risto going into, missing training camp, possibly the early parts of the season. We wanted to bring them a little bit of size. Again, it's a common team, but term was important for us. And if they perform well, we want to keep them. But we wanted to make sure that we don't block our young guys in the past next year. That was really important to us. But the fact that they bring grit and size is important also.
How much involvement was there with Rick Tocchet? Because he obviously knows Juleson, he obviously knows Dvorak. How much did he play a role in this, and did that kind of make it a little easier to?
Well, it's not like he came in and said, "I want those guys." They were already a target of ours before going in, and obviously we asked him his opinion of the players. He had good things to say, but it's not like he came in and he decided those are the guys we wanted to have. But we definitely used his opinion.
Did that help them coming here?
That's a question for them. I have a sense that yes, that's my feeling. The sense that we get from a lot of players around the league is people want to play for Rick Tocchet. He has that approach that we've heard a lot of people love, and his coaching style. So I would think so, but you'd have to ask the players.
Dvorak had a career year under Tocchet in Arizona. Just What was Rick's kind of scouting report on him?
Well, he loves his overall game. He's a player that is not going to hurt you. Defensively, you can play him against any lines. And that's the interesting part. Like he's matchup wise, it makes his life easier with Coots being that way, Cates being that way, Luchenko is known as that way. So we have a lot of centermen in the organization. Dorwart is, a little bit that way. I'm not saying they're all ready to play right away, but they're guys that can go and play against any of the top lines. You don't have to worry about matchup. So, that was interesting on Dvorak's side, the face-off, the penalty kill. And he's a big body. He might get some power play time. I think he said he had some power play time with him in Arizona before. So just overall, I think he makes us deeper down the middle.
Does the Dvorak signing block Luchenko from making the team this year?
No. Luchenko is, he's going to have to earn it. It's not like we have him slotted in, giving him a spot. He's going to have to earn it. We'll see how training camp goes for him. But the way he played last year at camp and early in the season, if he keeps improving, and also how he played in the playoffs down the stretch and in the playoffs in Lehigh Valley, it was really impressive. So hopefully he keeps on that streak going, and he could end up on the team.
So if he earns it, then you would maybe move one of the other guys over to wing to accommodate him.
We and that's kind of, we have different options that are presenting themselves too. Is before we were trying to jam a winger as a center, that's a lot tougher. When you have centers, it's a lot easier to move them on the wing. Noah Cates is an example. Zegras the last few years has played on the wing, so it's a lot easier to move a center to the wing than the other way around. So I'm not worried about that. Sorry.
What was your overall take on today? Do you satisfied? You filled up what you needed as far as position?
Yeah, we're excited because we made the team a little better, and that's the goal. We wanted to give the players something to chew on, to be excited a little bit that we're more competitive. And now it's up to the players to take the next step. But we wanted to start helping them. I said it from day one. We didn't have enough cap space to go after the big fish. But it's small steps that are not hurting us for the future. Keeps the flexibility for the future, but at the same time, bring some hope, and show the fans and the players on the team that we're taking step forwards.
What can you tell us about Tyson Foerster's status?
So he had an injury at the World Championship that wasn't supposed to be anything really serious. Came back here, and there's some infection that set in to the elbow, and then it just got worse. So he came and saw our doctors, and decided they had to go in and remove the infection. What I'm finding out is it takes a long time for all the samples to come back negative, and that's what we're still waiting on. We don't know, and at that point, we'll reevaluate and see if more needs to be done, or if we're lucky enough, that's the end of it, and he can move on and be ready for the start of the season. But there's no guarantee of that. So we're sitting and waiting right now to see how serious it is or not.
Was there a thought at all today of trying to find somebody that could potentially fill in for him if in fact
Tyson?
Yeah, he has to miss a lot.
No, because even in that case, he's not going to miss the whole year, or I hope he's not going to miss the whole year. So you're gonna need that money at some point. We have some young guys. Maybe if he does have to miss early in the season, that maybe they step up. Maybe it's an Alex Bump. Maybe it's Porter Martone. Kaplan played at the end of the year for us. There's other guys that perform that maybe they get a look early in the season if they have a good camp. So we just didn't feel that we can spend his money not knowing how long or if he's going to be out, or how long he's going to be out at this point.
A twofold question. Do you feel like you're done with what you need? And then I guess the follow up is that because you're kind of close to the cap, is there the thought of putting like a Ryan Ellis or maybe even I guess a Risto if he misses some considerable amount of time on long term?
Yeah.
So you haven't really used it in the past.
Correct. Are we done? Look, we're always open for business. I've always said that. We've probably done most of the damage that we needed to do today, but we're still looking to see if there's something else out there. Ideally, we would prefer not going into off-season LTIR, but obviously we're getting close to the cap, and if there's something that's too good to pass up, we will look into it.
There's been a lot of smoke around Maxim Shabanov linked to you guys. I think you've been open that you're waiting on his decision. Do you have any idea of a timeline of when we could hear?
We don't, and I know I'm like you guys. I read the stories. I get excited when I'm being told that he's signed with the Flyers. It just hasn't happened yet, or appeared on my desk yet. So I'm still waiting on that. We're waiting. We're hopeful. We were told that we're one of a few teams that he's considering still, but we have no inkling of which way he's leaning at this point.
When was the last time you
One or
heard
two
from
more?
him?
Sorry.
When was the last time you heard from them?
Today. I mean, we've had discussions pretty much every day with his camp. I'm sure like many other teams. So we're hopeful that he chooses the Flyers with the opportunities that we can provide.
When it comes to Vladar, who do you lean on in the organization to evaluate the goalies? I guess because you're not a goalie, you never played goalie, right? And
I shot on a lot of goalies.
Did you? Yeah, I know, but a lot of coaches and general managers be like, I don't know anything about goaltending. I was never a goalie. Who do you lean on to maybe whittle down the field of guys you're looking at and ultimately come to a decision on?
Yeah, Kim Dillabaugh has a big say in the goalies that we were looking at and the goalies that were available and made sense. Kim has a big say.
I'm just curious. Your four centers right now, if it ends up being this way, is Zegras, Couturier, Cates, and now Dvorak. They're all left shot. Is any thought of getting a righty kind of important?
Ideally, they're tough to find.
Yeah.
We looked into it. We're aware of that. Jet Luchenko is a righty, but it's like the right shot defenseman. A lot of teams are having a hard time finding him, and for some reason, if you look especially on our prospect board, they're all righties. Sometimes it just happens that way.
Dan, you mentioned Kim Dillabaugh. He's the only major coach, not video, but major coach who's returning. Some people, look at the goalie struggles and they maybe wonder why, Kim is stuck around under Rick Tocchet. Why do you still have confidence that he's the right guy?
Yeah, we believe in him. We feel he's done a good job. It's more than that. Unfortunately, I mean the Carter Hart situation. Carter was going on the right track. Urson was on the right track. He was doing a really good job with them, and unfortunately, that went sideways and put us in a little bit of a bind for the last year and a half. So we feel he's earned it before, and hopefully it was just a bad year last year, and our goalies get back on track, and he deserved to have a look.
All right, there he is, Flyers general manager Danny Briere, meeting with the media yesterday, and we'll see again if the Flyers jump into the trade market in any way, shape, or form. Again, I'll be at the Flyers training center today for development camp. We're going to talk to a lot of the picks and prospects and more to bring you on upcoming episodes of Flyers Daily, so look for that coming up as soon as Friday. Until then, everybody join us Friday for a brand new episode of Flyers Daily.